revolution, no man control. Sound off. Revolution with the breath of my lungs. Sound off. Sound off.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sound Off. You guys are watching Take On World TV. We are joined with Elijah, Robbie, Doug, Johnny. Waiting for Josh. Hopefully he'll be in tonight too as well. But what is up, everybody? It's so good to be back with you guys. And hopefully we have another wonderful show for you guys. And hopefully some great discussion and debates and maybe some heated stuff to happen tonight. So how are you guys doing?
Doing good.
7.5 out of 10.
What'd you say, Johnny?
I'm a 7.5 out of 10.
7.5 out of 10. Nice.
Not bad.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
Elijah's here. Never mind. 8.5 out of 10.
8.5.
There we go.
Is that jawline when he smiled? Oh, see that? There it was. Johnny has like a sort of like a man crush on Elijah. You know, like behind the scenes, like this is what I want my body to look like, my face to look like. I cover up my beard.
Elijah is a good-looking dude.
You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people, I used to take him to basketball with me, and a lot of people thought he came in there looking like one time. Everybody was like, "You come in here and bring Captain America." In here.
Is that why you used to bring him in? You stopped bringing him?
Well, no, he actually stopped coming. So
Oh, okay.
Oh.
he always had things to do. So
Yeah.
Chris, you need to
Crazy
find an
stuff,
old
you know.
picture of Elijah when he was in that band that used to play your church.
yeah, then Johnny won't have a man crush on him anymore.
Yeah.
That was his dark emo days.
Oh yeah. 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 We don't talk about those days.
Part of his testimony that he won't share, but it's some good stuff. So
Yeah.
So tonight, Elijah's actually going to be running the show. That's why we're like putting all the spotlights on him. I
Yeah.
mean, so you know, at times in the episode, if you guys see this, you know, really pay attention because we're going to put him right there, smack dab, right in the middle. Pull him up, and look at this, and you'll have, you know, Johnny's eyes. I mean, he'll be all eyes on listening to what he has to say. But so Elijah's going to be running tonight's show, but we're going to be talking about tonight's show. Why does Christian music suck? So it's going to be from the perspective of the world, Christians who don't listen to Christian music and their reasons behind why they think Christian music sucks. And if you guys are offended by the word sucks, maybe tonight's show isn't for you because we may use it a few different times. So, you know, depending on how you feel about that, because there was a debate amongst us, whether do we use the word stinks or sucks. And everybody said, I didn't even have to ask Doug. I knew what Doug's answer was. Look at his shirt. Show everybody what your shirt says so that nobody thinks, you know, it says something different.
Wow.
It is a Striper t-shirt. So
And
it
we're
is
worried about the word suck.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, he went full blown right here.
All good.
Biblical word. So, you know, hey, it's yeah, it's all good there. But we are going to be talking about it from that perspective. Before we do that, we're going to have a little fun, and we're going to show, you know, sort of like what the world sort of thinks about Christian music, Christian rock, and
So you're playing Toby Mac.
it's going to play. Yeah, we're going to play something. We're definitely going to not play Toby Mac. We may play something that's going to get this video censored right off the bat. But if you
His
guys
new
have,
album's dropping on in August.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I do have you know, after me and Elijah were talking, we have a great episode coming up. Another idea that I think you guys are going to dig as well. But let me go ahead and pull this in, and we're going to have to start this from the beginning. So
Classic.
classic episode.
This is a classic
So-
one. Yeah.
Oh, what's the show?
Here we
Don't
go.
move the seat. I got it right where I like it.
Right there.
Goodbye.
2 and 10.
Okay,
Don't peel out.
I won't.
Jesus is one. Jesus is all. Jesus pick me up when I fall. Amen. Amen.
So we pray.
Jesus.
Jesus. Here's one. I borrowed Putty's car, and all the presets on his radio were Christian rock stations.
I like Christian rock. It's very positive. It's not like those real musicians who think they're so cool and hip.
So, you think that Putty actually believes in something?
It's a used car. He probably never changed the presets.
Yes, he is lazy.
Plus, he probably doesn't even know how to program the buttons.
Yes, he is dumb.
So you prefer dumb and lazy to religious?
Dumb and lazy, I understand. Hello, boys.
Hey! So, did you get that radio, the old switcheroo?
I did.
And the Christian rock?
Resurrected. And look what I pried off of his bumper. A Jesus fish.
Do you have any fish sticks?
No. So you're disappointed he's a spiritual person?
Oh, yeah, I got him because he seems so one-dimensional. I feel misled.
I think it's neat. You don't hear that much about God anymore.
All right, thanks.
So where do you want to eat?
Feels like an Arby's night.
Do you believe in God?
Yes,
Oh, so you're pretty religious.
that's right.
So is it a problem that I'm not really religious?
Not for me.
Why not?
I'm not the one going to hell.
Yeah, that was just an amazing clip. And so, Christian rock, has been made fun of by many different shows. Obviously, our banner tonight, South Park, and, what a lot of people in the world, what a lot of people in Christianity, what do they think of it? So tonight we're going to be discussing why does Christian music suck? And we're going to be telling you why it actually doesn't. So
I need to ask one quick question, though,
Yeah.
just before we start here. What city has multiple Christian rock stations? That's all I want to know. Maybe Johnny knows in the radio circuit that there's actually a city that has multiple Christian rock.
Not rock stations.
No. All right.
But I mean, if you listen to the presets, there was not Christian rock.
Yeah. So if you look at Ohio, we probably have the biggest and the best Christian rock station in the United States, which is Radio U, which is syndicated all over the country. That's right in Columbus, Ohio. So,
Cool. Nice.
yeah. So Elijah.
Yeah. So, just so everybody's, kind of aware, I purposely wanted to kind of keep everybody on the panel in the dark, and I tried to keep Chris in the dark as long as I could on it because I wanted to get with a lot of the stuff that we'll cover, I wanted to get instant reactions from you guys. So, he didn't have a lot of time to kind of think through it. And it was just kind of okay, you're going to, hear some different opinions and things. And I think it'll be, fun to see what kind of some of the instant reactions are that you guys have for it. So the first video that we'll play is just more of a fun one. I have more of a serious one towards the end, but go ahead and roll the fun one if you would, Chris.
Christian music record deal.
We're going to get you guys circulating on Christian radio. How's that sound, huh?
Yeah, first of all, let me just say I love the diversity.
Yes.
Love what you guys are doing here. It's really going to connect, resonate with our audience. Listen, if you want Christian music radio airplay, we know the formula. It's real simple. Dirt roads, trucks, multiple uses of the word girl.
Well, that's next page.
Oh, shoot, that's country music. Christian music song formula. 3 chords, simple rhymes, vague struggles, boom, hit song. You ever been flipping through the dial and you come across a song and you're like, that just sounds Christian. Christian chord charts, even easier. A, D, G.
It's the holy trinity of Christian music.
Lyric writing is even easier, you guys.
Oh, yeah, you always got to start with a vague struggle, all right? A hard time.
Geographical references.
Yes.
Storm, valley, desert.
You got to throw in some vague Christian terms and just connect them randomly. Make it really predictable. Watch this. Seek his face, mercy,
grace.
Feel his love, blessed from
above.
We could sell that to Casting Crowns or Sanctus Real right now.
We were thinking about writing more honest lyrics, stuff from the heart.
Okay, John Mark McMillan.
Who's that?
Yeah, exactly.
You ever heard of the song How He Loves?
The Tomlin version?
The Crowder version. The Mercy Me version.
Oh, the Carrie Joe version.
The Jeremy Camp version. The Passion version.
Exactly. McMillan writes from the heart. No one's ever heard of him. If it wasn't for that sloppy wet kiss line, he'd be at the Passion Conference right now.
We just like to be more vulnerable in our lyrics. Talk about real issues.
Okay, like not reading the Bible enough?
Like not balancing work and family well?
No, like real issues, like addiction.
You can only mention your struggles in an abstract type way. Drowning, sinking.
Rain, rain on my face. That's from the smash hit Flood.
Never heard of it? Waves crashing.
I don't know. This is a big one. Oceans? Checkmate.
Basically,
Thank you.
all you need to know is more water references.
Have you ever heard of I Am a Friend of God?
He calls me friend.
Boom! Dove Awards. Family Christian Bookstores.
Want to be on the poster? Sign the paper.
Thank you.
This says our band name is Cross Trainers.
Yeah, we like your name, but it didn't really resonate with our audience. We changed it to Cross. It's like a mainstream play on words. Get it?
It's hashtag relevant, if you will. Guys, we have merch for you already. You're gonna love it, okay? We got t-shirts, we got coasters, we got a mug, we've got a fedora. Also, before we go any further, you guys are voting for Hillary, right?
Okay, this says we have to include chains being gone, laying down burdens, and darkness to light in every song.
Every song. Yeah, we kind of, at this point, just kind of given up on reaching non-Christians.
So we put out a Christian album, then what?
You're gonna put out a Christmas album,
Live album,
a worship album,
and a greatest hits.
Bazinga, that's a heck of a career if you ask me.
And if anything goes wrong, one of you guys can join the Newsboys.
In the industry, we call them the revolving doors.
Okay, you know what? Actually, I don't think that this.
Hold on.
Just
hear us out. Hear us out.
Okay, we'll get you guys in the Dove Awards, huh?
I don't know. You ever heard of Winter Jam?
We'll get you a starring role in God's Not Dead 3 featuring the Kevin Sorbo.
No, that's okay.
Okay, wait. We'll let you remake Good Father.
Oh my God, we love that song.
Yeah, love it. Here we go. Let's make this happen.
All right, so cheesy video, but when I was like doing my research, I tried to look into why does like the secular world not find Christian music appealing? Obviously outside of the main reason where I'm not going to listen to Christian music because I'm not religious or whatever, right? But I started reading through blogs, I read articles, all this stuff. I started pulling all kinds of different content. So, we'll kind of go through this PowerPoint, and there's different quotes I pulled from, just from different people and their opinions on it. But anybody have any reaction to that video? I know it's supposed to be like funny, but there was kind of like some hidden truthful stuff in there.
It's not hidden. It's actual how it's done.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
I mean, it's the industry, right? It's very cookie cutter, right? And he was basically showing that, country rock, I'm sure that pretty much all the industry have kind of a formula, just like Hollywood. I mean, they have a formula based on their arc, on the character, conflict. I mean, there's things that sell. So I think as far as an industry goes, they're following, hey, this is stuff sells. This is stuff that's going to make us money. That's why they're pressuring the artists. Hey, follow into this cookie cutter format. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? They're there to make money. They don't want to lose money. They want to make money. So I think that could be applied to any Christian genre. It is kind of interesting that, they're showing kind of the Christian aspect of it, but they're not wrong. All the water references and all the stuff they were talking about is pretty much
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you even look at all industries, right? You even had, I hate to even mention this name, but I found it to be an interesting interview. Female rapper, disgusting rapper, Cardi B, she had done an interview saying that she didn't want to do the things that she was doing, and basically saying she was forced to do these things, and and all she wanted to do, what she said at the end of this interview, is all she wants to do is be a mom. And you're just like, wow. I mean, the honesty coming out of there, and like you're being forced to do something. I think the Christian music industry is no different when it comes to that, especially when it comes to labels. And I think Christian music has broken away from that a little bit recently because the indie scene has now dominated over the labels, right? So, artists are able to control things a little bit more than they ever had in any time in history.
But for the most part, artists that are signed under labels are predominantly going to do better overall. There's always exceptions to the rule where we see, you know, someone like, for example, Tom McDonald, right? Totally goes out, becomes kind of a bestseller, iTunes, all these sort of things, talking about what he's talking about and having no control with the labels. But again, it is exception to the rule. Most of the biggest artists in all genres are under a label.
The thing is, and we have this conversation all the time. I mean, I've been in radio for 20 years and it's all the same thing. Why do you guys only play, you know, let's just say Chris Tomlin? Because that's what the listening audience wants to hear. As much as you want to hear, insert whatever artist that may be, we do music testing, and all of the audience that we do our music testing wants to hear a Chris Tomlin. And so if Chris Tomlin sells, then you're going to find people who are going to sound like, be like, somewhat like a Chris Tomlin. If Hillsong or Bethel or these places are doing worship music and it's getting onto radio and it's doing really well, well, guess what? More churches are going to do that. And it is 100% about money, and it is 100% about making money. And yes, there's a spiritual aspect behind it, because I mean, you know, having a ton of conversations with Chris Tomlin, great guy, but there's so many people then who want to be the next Tomlin.
Well, my question is why can't Christian music be more like the mainstream end of it, with, you know, bands like Rush were discovered because of radio stations like WMMS in Cleveland. You have many bands that never would have been played on the radio had it not been for a B-side of a record and a DJ willing to take risks. So we get stuck in this cookie cutter fashion of, you know, Chris Tomlin's or a Toby Mac, where there's hundreds of other artists that could be played on the radio that people might go, oh my gosh, I like them better, instead of just playing the same 4 songs every hour.
The majority of people don't like rap, you know, in those formats. So for example, Toby Mac, you know, as long as there's mostly singing, but as far as like having rap in it, those will be excluded from airplay as well. I think the discrepancy that we have with Christian radio is we think that Christian, and it is, truly is, it's all these genres, but as far as the industry and as far as what it's become, it's country. Christian country. It's one genre. And anyone that veers out of that and says, oh, this is metal, this is rock. No. That's not part of the industry CCM. It's almost like CCM is truly a thing.
Tell me, I mean, I don't know if you know anything about Radio U, but you have a radio station that's lasted for what, 20 years now?
They're a rock station though, correct?
They're an everything station.
Yeah, they play everything.
Okay, so what I'm saying is there might be a station that plays everything, and that's they have a big enough demo.
They don't play that much CCM though.
No.
So it's here, yeah. So they've got like how many are in Ohio? Like they listen to that station. What would you say? How many people would listen to it?
I mean, it's a Columbus affiliated station, so the only way to get it is if you listen to it on your phone via, I don't know.
And I would say this, Doug, probably too. I would say their viewership has dropped, or their listenership has dropped due to Columbus becoming much more of a liberal city over the last 10 years, much more each and every year. And so those college students going to OSU, all the things that are right there in Columbus, I believe their viewership is down, and they really focus on the heavy music rather than, you know, such a collective. Like they may have like a hip hop hour or, you know, electronic hour, you know, they may do that. But it's not their normal, you know, playlist. They used to be much more diverse. So I get a chance to listen to them every time I go to Nashville or go to Columbus, you know.
Do they have family Christian bookstores in Ohio, like in your city?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, no.
Have they all shut down?
Yep.
Pretty much.
So that's kind of what I have to say. It's the same thing here in Canada. Pretty much all the major chains, all the big stores, they've all shut down. So as far as an industry, I just don't think there's a demand. Trust me, Johnny can attest how many times I bothered him saying, dude, have an hour for rock and rap and all. And again, it just did not go well at all with people that would listen to it. Maybe it's because of Spotify, maybe because of downloads, maybe it's podcasting. Who knows? The fact is, there's not that demand. So as much as I would like rock and rap to be part of, Christian radio, it's just not part of it anymore. Unfortunately, it just isn't, or it's a dying breed. As far as the station you're talking about in Ohio, maybe in another 10 years, it won't exist anymore. I don't know. I just know that there's been a huge decline right across the board in Christian music, period.
But CCM is a genre.
Correct.
And just like Christian hip hop, Christian rock, Christian country, Christian Southern gospel, CCM is a genre, and that genre is a Toby Mac or a Tomlin or
and it
a
would
Matt
be the
West.
biggest by far, by magnitudes. It would be the largest Christian genre. Would you not agree?
100%.
Yeah,
For sure.
So if we were going to add rock or rap, I mean, we're talking a very, very small percentage of the overall CCM, industry as a whole. So I can see there'd be a lot more demand, or just it takes millions of dollars to even run a radio station.
I would be curious to see in a couple of years from now, depending on how his career goes, do people know Matty Mullins rocker or Matty Mullins CCM artist in the next few years, depending how his career goes, just how powerful CCM could be.
Well, there's enough people that didn't even know that Matty Mullins was in a band.
Right?
I mean, more mainstream kids know Matty Mullins as the hardcore vocalist versus the Christian kids know him as the solo artist.
Yeah.
So
But that could change.
It could change.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go through here a couple of you guys are starting to hit on some of the stuff that's coming up. So the first couple of slides was I took some excerpts from an article that I read. Someone had written a opinion piece on, and I don't believe it was a Christian person, and they had basically put down their opinions on Christian music. So I'll kind of read through them and then get some of your feedback and see what you guys think. So why is it that so often Christian music is so awful? The musicians and their audience mistake a worthy message for talent. The audience are often either totally uncritical or they haven't the ability to criticize intelligently. Market forces are usually not in play. Market forces weed out the junk, but in the Christian market, they're doing it for love, not money. So no one is telling them to get off the stage because it won't sell.
I think I disagree with that last one, because Christian music does sell, and I think if you go back, let's say other than when Baby Baby hit and crossed over to be a #1 hit in the mainstream world, the 90s became full of artists that we had constant crossover success. Relient K, Switchfoot, POD. The list kept going on and on. As the 90s came through. 80s Stryper, Amy Grant. But really, we had this 90s boom. To the 2000s. When you get Mute Math comes on the scene. They're not technically Christian after their lawsuit and their debate, but they go on to become huge in the mainstream, or at least underground mainstream. Then you have the spirituality of like bands like 21 Pilots, how they claim to be born again believers. You have, things that were clearly selling, and they were selling in both markets. And those people were clearly being told what sells and what doesn't sell. I think the only that statement, that last statement is so general that I say a lot of those artists in the industry weren't even necessarily doing it for the love of like God. They probably were doing it for the love of fame, money, those things. And I think that's how a lot of these artists, do start off with, right?
I would say with that last statement, the record companies have always done it for the money. It was never for the love. It was never for the glory of God, except for maybe when we get to the mid 70s with Keith Green and Sparrow Records. But the reality is that, I mean, if you take a look at, the era that you're talking about, what was it, 2005 maybe, or maybe a little bit later, that 60% of the bands playing Warped Tour were Christian bands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had Sleeping Giant, For Today, you had Project 86, you had major Christian bands that were part of one of the biggest traveling festivals of all time.
But even look at a band like Super Chick, how they crossed over into so many different soundtracks. They were played in so many songs like Legally Blonde. So I mean, it was pretty much everywhere at a point that Christian music had infiltrated the mainstream world. So yeah, I mean, it was always there.
Yeah, I would totally disagree with this. If anything, I mean, it was one of the fastest growing music genres in the world. The numbers were off the charts. There was a huge demand, and I would say that this might be more applied to Christian movies, in the sense of quality wise. I think music, they came to the same caliber as secular incredibly fast. Yes, it started off kind of cheesy stuff, but it didn't take very long for it to be at the caliber of an artist. Remember those, hey, if you like this, you might like this. There were a lot of people that listened to certain music genres, and they got into it through that witnessing encounter because it was so good. The lyrics were secondary. They didn't even know it was Christian until I told them, like, who is this? Oh, this is Christian. What? This is Christian? Then they paid attention to those lyrics, but they got into the music because it was done so well. The artistry, the musicianship, all these sort of things. So for me, when I hear, oh, Christian music's awful, I don't think that applies anymore. I really don't. I think the caliber is pretty much comparable to any secular. Take a secular death metal and get the best Christian death metal, and it's probably going to compare. Sometimes it's even better.
Yeah, I mean, look at that first one real quick. The musicians and their audience mistake a worthy message for talent. You take a look at an artist like Toby Mac, songwriting ability, all of those things that are clearly talents, which get him, playing with DC Talk, all the late night, from Arsenio Hall to the Tonight Show, to them, yes, Toby Mac, Fox News, The View. He was, he had, played all of those things in the mainstream. They clearly recognize that talent. And when, if I'm mistaken me if I'm wrong, when Lecrae had the #1 Billboard album in the country on all charts, Toby Mac was like 2 or 3 that at the same exact time. He had Lecrae had edged out Toby on the mainstream of all music in the world. Here is the top Billboard, and it was dominated with Lecrae and Toby Mac those years. That wasn't just Christian people obviously purchasing that music to just get it to the top, because they release music every 2 years. Why didn't any of the other albums get that big? So there's clearly some misnomers there. I mean, we've talked about Plato and Manchild, how they would go into these secular freestyle battles like Red Bull Challenge, all of these main big things, and dominate their way to the charts, destroying all the other secular artists freestyling. So, we talk about talent. I think that, what the world has wrong, what, Christians who think Christian music is terrible or awful, they just don't really know enough to go, wow, there is some real talent here, and there always has been.
Sometimes it's perception as well. Like, for example, like somebody might hear Newsboys back in the 90s and going, yeah, okay, they're okay. Once it was on playing on all the radio stations, oh, wow, these guys are awesome, right? It's a perception thing as well, too. People will identify with something playing on the radio as like, these guys are the best in the world, right? So sometimes it's really hard sometimes to look at some music and say the caliber or the quality of it until it kind of reaches that level. You know, we always talk about like, wow, Mute Math must be amazing because look how big they became, or these crossover artists. I don't think it had anything to do with how good they were per se, as it, the right time, the right place, who they knew, a lot of factors. You know, it was almost just like the fact that you were talking about Lecrae and, Toby as kind of a comparison. Well, you see the same thing happening in the secular industry. It was Vanilla Ice was introduced to the masses, you know what I mean? Before any, other black rappers started coming out and getting into, white households and stuff like this. My point is they'll look for something that's commercialized, but also marketable. Toby Mac is marketable, right? He just is marketable. So from that vantage point, sometimes we see these people that are elevated and we think that they're the best, but really they were the ones either with the connections, they were the marketable, they were the ones that had that image that the industry was looking for. I don't know if anyone agrees or disagrees with that.
I'm rereading this list, and it's kind of made me mad, but it takes me back to the 1980s when people don't realize that, like, I'm the metal guy on the show besides Josh, but what people don't understand is that, like, Deliverance, Tourniquet, a bunch of the bands that were big in the heavy metal scene were produced by Bill Metoyer, who was the same producer for like Slayer, Testament, and all of those secular death metal, speed metal bands. And Bill Metoyer will tell you, he said it in many interviews, that Tourniquet and Deliverance were some of the best musicians. The musicians and their audience mistake worthy message for their talent. Some Stryper, again, two of the best guitarists in music. Michael Sweet's vocals are unmistakable. So I would. Where did you find this list, man?
But I will say this. Let me say this on the flip side to that before anybody moves on. If we look at that, the musicians and their audience mistake a worthy message for talent. I just revealed that there's so much talent, but as we know, there was a lot of bad. And there was a lot of stuff that was being pushed out there because
the Imperial.
Because it was, well, no, come on.
25 singles, man.
Christian.
25 singles.
No, we can actually start. We could probably do like the worst bands of all time show, which would be fun to go through. But those are, there.
Imperials wouldn't be on that list.
There are some cringe Christian artists.
Oh yeah, there is.
On every single label that you go, this was not good. They weren't great singers. They weren't. The talent was definitely missing. But a worthy message was elevated, and that probably has happened many, many, many times over. But when we lump that all together, I mean, there's secular artists that came out that were bad. They may
there's tons of artists in the secular industry that failed, had one album or two, or just because they signed it and the label just they were done. One hit wonders. We always hear about this. That happens all the time. They were not good musicians. They were not good at what they did. They had one song that was catchy and it hit, and that was it, and they were done. So
there was one. It was a female artist. Her name was Katie Hudson, and she got dropped really, really quickly. And
until she went on,
she kissed the girl and she liked it, right? So
until she went on a POD record, and then she kissed the girl and she liked it. And if you guys didn't know, Katy Perry was she was born in a Christian home, was a Christian artist.
That's debatable.
Wasn't that the story with Christina Aguilera as well? It wasn't like she brought
Jessica Simpson. Jessica Simpson.
Sorry,
right.
Yeah. Jessica Simpson.
Yeah,
no, but I think Christina Aguilera, if you go back far enough, she had she was singing in church. There's a Christian backstory way back, like growing up.
Well, even the they them, if we use her pronouns properly, which is Demi Lovato, You can go back and watch her younger videos when she's singing hymns and singing Christian songs, just like the Jonas Brothers. There was a lot of that.
A lot of artists got their start in church. Yeah. What?
Nick Jonas had a single on radio.
He did. Yeah.
Time for Me to Fly.
All right, so this is the second slide from this article. The problem with most Christian music is that it is secular music with Christian words. Most Christian music is taken from the secular world. And when you then add sacred words to secular music, there is natural disconnect. That's why so much Christian music, even when it is well written and well performed, doesn't really work.
Well, wasn't somebody had played it for me, and it was and you brought up South Park, that somebody says you just put the word Jesus instead of love and it makes a Christian song or something like that. I remember somebody made, but I mean, the thing is that the problem with most Christian music is that it's secular music with Christian. I mean, you could say that about any music then. Like that's, yeah, one man's opinion.
Why should the devil have all the good music? I mean, honestly, this list is kind of idiocy. It's just, it makes, music is music.
Why was Christian music? Why is Christian music even a thing? Why was it? I'll say invented as far as the genre element of it, not worship and not hymns. I'm talking about Christian music. I mean, we have to go back to the reason why it even was a thing, and it was a thing as a bridge, a ministry tool. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, that is what Christian music is, unless it's completely straight towards a Christian audience to help them in their walk. But other than that, there's the ministry component as well. Whether or not the industry recognizes that, there still always is that ministry component to it. Because like Johnny will attest to this as well. There's a lot of people that will be flipping around and they come across a Christian radio station and they hear the song, and all of a sudden those lyrics do identify to their life. Because the one thing that secular music's not doing is really talking to, for the most part, correct. But it does happen. I have heard it. And many people have testified to me that, that the lyrics were a big part of it. And they enjoyed the music as well.
Two things. The first one, let's redo the first line. The problem with most secular music is that it is Christian music with secular words. You could say the same thing.
Right.
Very true.
Anyways, part two to this.
Go ahead.
You were saying something, Robbie. The amount of people that we have that would send us messages that say, hey, listen, I'm not a Christian, but we love the music. We love the positive. We love the, listening to a radio station that we don't have to worry about what's coming on, but we don't go to church, but we hope that's okay. But we love to listen to, my son loves Toby Mac because he doesn't swear. The amount of times that we get emails weekly from people would blow you away. And it's people who are just looking for something different than the garbage that you hear on most radio stations.
Yeah, good point. Really good point.
I would say this. So if you look at that, the problem with most Christian music is that it is secular music with Christian words. This is the biggest detractor of the church that is put off by Christian music industries, whether it be rock, hip hop, all the different subgenres within music. Baptist churches, all different camps, right? Torah camps. This is the common thing, is that it's just too worldly. It's too this. So if you go back to hymns originally come from bar hall songs. The tone, how they're set up, all these things are built off of old bar hall songs. And these hymns were actually an extension of the same format, because even they've told us this is where they get them from. So it's always been taken from something, to be able to express, something. Like we're doing this show on YouTube. I could tell you the first live show with multiple people on there wasn't a Christian show that we saw. It was a worldly show that we said, hey, well, we can teach on YouTube and we can set up this and we can do this. If we want to get that nitpicky with everything, everything probably comes from something else. And that's why a lot of people say, I don't want to listen to this because it's too worldly, it's too this, it's too that.
Original.
Nothing. You're right. Probably nothing is super original. Even the artists that claim to be, creating something, very unique and abstract, right?
Well, I mean, nothing is original, and except for the first person that did it. So therefore, you can't claim one thing for. It's like, take a band like POD saying they didn't say this, but I'm just saying if they said this, that they were the grandfathers or godfathers of rapcore. They weren't the first to do it, but they were ones that made multi-million dollars and sold millions of records doing it. It's just that no one is the original of anything, and you can't just placate off of that and say, well, actually the Bible itself isn't the original. It was the Torah that was the original books. So therefore you can't just claim something that is that Christians are mimicking the secular world. I don't see that, and I never saw that. I could say that there have been bands that have been close to mimicking secular bands, but I've never seen it to where they were trying to be somebody that they weren't.
Well, look at NF for Christian hip hop.
Oh, he's Eminem.
Right.
He's Eminem. That's the first thing that people. Oh, he's just trying to be.
Actually, that would be more KJ5 too, but
I mean, everybody's looking for, and we bring back the, every week we talk about it, that if you like these guys, listen to these guys, because there's always trying to find that line of, so.
But see,
because they also know people that are into them, right? So it's a way of that bridging again as well too, right?
Yeah.
Hey, your kid listens to Eminem, maybe, this will appeal and get them off this garbage or whatever, right? But I would definitely say that NF is a lot more like Eminem than KJ. I mean, I know a lot of people said that, but I think it's just because he was white. That's all. Because KJ does not at all remotely sound like Eminem or even come off rapping his style. None of it is like Eminem, in my opinion. But we could have a debate on another show on that.
All right, I'm gonna get you guys going on the next couple slides here because
I don't think so. You're Slim.
Yeah, that song, and he wrote it. He wrote it actually to Eminem.
Dude, his last couple records were straight up rip-offs of Eminem.
I don't know. I definitely think NF's a lot more like Eminem than KJ was. I think at the time it was like, yeah, this is. We'll get into it in another show for sure when we get into hip hop.
All right. So speaking of rock and hip hop, here's a quote for you guys. Rock and roll music was, from the beginning, highly sexualized, laden with rebellious, heavy, and nasty rhythms linked with the drug culture, designed to alter consciousness and demolish self-restraint. The acid and heavy rock was also obviously linked to an occult and demonic subculture. So you want to put a cozy Christian words to all of that.
Why should the devil have all the good music? I think that's honestly the bottom line.
Is that from Hell's Bell?
Thanks, Anonymous.
I know it's anonymous, but
I don't think it's from Hell's Bell.
No, it was just from an article.
He probably just found an article or a forum or something, but no, that's not from Hell's Bells.
Again, you have to be there. I've seen hundreds of people, thousands of people get saved at Christian rock and hip hop concerts. So either God's using it for his glory or he's not.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. And it can be used for good or it can be used for evil. The whole idea that there's probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Christians that believe that drums are evil, period. That even drumming is like of the devil, right? A beat is of the devil, right? To me, it's just going too far. The fact of the matter is music itself, percussion, can be used to glorify God or it can be used to elevate the world and Satan or whatever. So I agree with that.
Well, there is a debate about the frequency of music, right? There's a frequency to everything in nature. no matter what it is, right? And there's all those videos that show you could take water and freeze it and play classical ice crystals formation is very in sync and very in harmony. And when you play things like heavy metal, for example, it's chaos. The frequency produces chaos. Just like certain instruments like the harp or different things that we see scripturally, these things have a soothing effect on the body, right? So David comes in, scriptural, he plays for the king, and the king relaxes and the king falls asleep. And, there's an aspect in it. Now this becomes a routine of him playing for the king. And that probably had everything to do with the sound vibrations of that. So there is something to.
What kind of music do you think they were playing in the court getting ready for battle? Right? Like there's an element that music obviously depends on your taste and your mood. So I agree with you. I 100%.
Heavy metal. It would have been metal.
Well, of course. I mean, and Doug would agree. Doug would agree. It's probably Striper.
I would beg to differ. I would beg to differ. I think when he came out and played the harp, it was a heavy metal harp. I mean, he was putting them
plugged in somewhere, right?
So this has been an argument for the decades, but the reality is that God's either the center of it or he's not. So the intentions lie within, is God the center? I don't believe in beats are satanic. I don't believe in. Who said that?
I was just teasing.
Robbie. He's not a fan of the headphones.
I'm not a fan of the beat.
Well, let's take a look at a band, Seventh Day Slumber, for example. These guys are probably out of the rock bands.
Rojas.
I would say probably one of the most genuine rockers. Now they may not be the best, but musically, right? There's probably bands that are better than them because clearly
they definitely have a couple songs better than Striper. I can tell you that.
They probably do.
They probably do.
I'm just kidding, Doug. I thought Doug would just start
they do have some good songs,
camera.
but the heart and the ministry of these guys, and this is the music style that they play. I could tell you, they reach so many people. And going to some of their shows, the people that are coming out of addictions, certain things, they're leading a pack that's not welcome by most churches. That's why I don't get put on festivals. I mean, they're outspoken about the things in the world. So, I see them doing more than most CCM artists or even soft, worship artists. These guys are legit and they're living what they preach.
And he has a crazy backstory too.
Yeah, I saw Disciple live the first time, and
another good one.
What's that?
Another good one.
Yeah. And I had kind of liked him at first, and then when I saw him live, I was just blown away by him, especially because the lead singer just gave this this whole testimony about how he had to lean on God so heavily because his wife had was giving birth and was near death, and this whole thing. They weren't sure if the kid or her were going to make it, and he just he did this on a stage in front of this pretty more like a rock crowd group of people and stuff. So but it was super cool. It was awesome to hear that and kind of get that hear more about that artist's backstory and some of the reasons why they wrote that song and stuff. It puts things more into perspective, than it's just like a song, to actually hear it from their mouth, live like that. It was super cool. And I appreciated that. Okay. This is actually from the next two ones are quotes from pastors.
Wait, put his name on it.
The question is, where is the emphasis? And I would argue with the rap, with the heavy beat and with those things, that the physical distraction is so much that the focus is no longer on the words. The music should be about helping us to remember concepts that we need to remember and help us to carry forward. The problem with any other form of music is who is the attention drawn to. And rap is about drawing attention to the rapper, drawing attention to how his skill is different than anybody else's skill, to how he is a special person. And so they were interviewing a bunch of pastors on their opinion on Christian hip hop.
I mean, the debate could be said the same, and I've heard this before, where why do pastors have their picture on the cover of their books? Right? Like you see this all the time, right? And you'd be like, well, wait a minute, is that vanity? Why would you put your picture on the front? It's almost the same thing on an album cover. Why would you put your picture? But bands do it. You know, some people like it, some people don't. But this idea that all that entire genre is bringing attention to themselves, again, it comes down to their heart, their intention, to just a blanket statement and say that. I guess the truth would be, though, that there would be more temptation within certain genres because of that. But anyways,
switch it to pastor. The preaching, right? The problem with any other form of preaching is who the attention is drawn to. And the preaching is about drawing the attention to the preacher, drawing attention to his skill, which people go to church because they like the pastor and how he preaches and how it's different than anybody else's ability or skill, to how he is a special person. How do they treat that pastor? Like he's a special person. Where does he stand? He stands on a podium in front of a group of people. The pastor does nothing different than what the rapper does. The rapper has the ability to reach people that the pastor can't.
It's a good point. It's a good point. But Chris, there is no preaching battles or preaching freestyles.
This is something maybe we should do for next year. Pastor battles.
Yeah, that would be
sweet.
sweet.
Revelations 2 verse 1. What do you got there, Pastor Dan? Oh, here's Thessalonians.
You've never been around somebody who
it is a good point.
You've never been around somebody who uplifts a certain pastor and they follow everything they do.
Oh, sure. Happens all the time.
Teacher on YouTube.
We're prone to it. I think people in general are prone to highlight, to elevate, to put someone on a pedestal.
Yeah. I mean, Joel Osteen books wouldn't be selling if they didn't put him on a pedestal.
Well, let's be honest, he's a motivational speaker, not a pastor.
No, true. And that is a point. But there would be a lot of, pastors or people in ministry that have their picture on the cover of the book. Now, see, it doesn't bother me. I've just heard that argumentation that is bringing focus. Why would you need to do that? And the same thing with a band. Why, if the band doesn't want to focus on them, but just wants to focus on Jesus, why would they have a picture of themselves on the cover? I don't agree with this argument. I've just heard it. I think it's a very lame argument, to tell you the truth. They're really trying to poke holes at it. I think when people do this, they just don't like the music. Now, this Pastor Dan, I will bet you any money he does not like rap at all, period. Nothing to do with the industry. No, he does not like that form of music. If there were hymn battles going on, he'd be right down. He'd be down for the hymn battles. All right. So it's the rap. It's the beat.
For Dan Hymn.
There we go. So I think, you're going to see kind of these biased things come out because of the style of music they hate. Most people that are talking negatively about the genres of music say it's heavy metal. They don't like heavy metal music. So they got a lot of bad things to say about it, but it's just closed-minded. It's almost like the sense that we should all be still just singing hymns. That's all the Christian music should be, is just hymns, or better yet, just psalms, right? Because there are some churches that won't even sing hymns. They only will sing what's in the Bible. That's it. That's their line. Do we take that line? Some people would. Now, if that's good for you, you feel comfortable in that, fine. Just don't enforce it on someone else. It's the same thing.
But every subculture is the same, right? So you've got Baptist groups that will only listen to hymns.
Baptists don't dance though.
Hymns, classical music, no dancing. You'll have your Pentecostals. You'll have your Messianic groups that only listen to Hebraic music. Every group says this is the only music you can listen to. This is the only thing you can do. This is the only thing. Every group, I will tell you, every single group within the body will ultimately come to that.
But isn't it personal? Isn't it because they just feel comfortable in that? That's it. It's almost like somebody that likes heavy metal, that's their genre. They don't like country. And it's almost like trying to force them to like country. They're like, look, man, I don't like it. Unfortunately, though, Christians, they start to put it over on everyone, right? You've got to be able to listen to music I listen to, and you should only listen to the music I listen to. That is when you're overstepping, when you're starting to enforce your taste, your comfort zone on other people. If you're convicted, if you feel comfortable in that, keep that to yourself, but don't try to enforce it on someone else.
Mhm.
Right. That's a good point.
Good luck.
All right, here's one more from Pastor Jeff.
G off B.
What concerns me about this so-called art form, it's a picture of weakness and surrender on the part of the people who think they're serving God, and they're not. They're serving their own flesh. They're caving into the world. They're disobedient cowards. They're not really willing to engage in the fight that needs to be engaged. If we're reformers and we're going to change and fully redeem and replace the world, we're not going to make ourselves friends of the world and enemies of God. And so this is what concerns me about anytime Christians in a cowardly way follow the world instead of changing it and confronting the antithesis. And we need to be doing this in every possible art form, including film, including other kinds of music.
You know what's great about this is that these are the emails that I get every week.
Really?
So this is just like you reading emails that I
Hey,
receive.
Pastor Jeff, you're like, oh, I got this email a few weeks ago. How did you find this? Yeah.
Can we find out who this Pastor Jeff B is and ask him how many times he's actually stepped out of his steeple doors?
No, let's have him on the show, Doug. Let's have him on the show. Let's
find
him
him.
and have him on the show.
I want to, because somebody who's actually toured and spent most of their life in the music industry and has done this guy's an idiot.
But we have to find someone at some point that has this philosophy, and we have to have like a debate, because I like a nice cordial, maybe heated at times, but a cordial professional debate. I think it'd be interesting to find out what the points are. It's always good to be sharpened to find out, this is just a paragraph, but what if all of a sudden he had time to fully go into it? It'd be just intriguing to find out someone's mindset.
I mean, when if so,
boy, Elijah, you really got under Doug's skin with this one. He's just smiling. He's like smiling. I thought the Imperials got him upset, but this is over and beyond.
When he calls it a cowardly way, I don't know too many of my friends that were touring musicians that, one, made money, two, were quote rock stars. They did it to save souls, to do the Great Commission that God told them to do. And you lost money, you didn't eat for days, you were lucky to sleep on somebody's garage floor or living room floor, you never had hotel rooms. I mean, Jeremiah Dirt and I can contest to some of the atrocities of the places that we slept, but we were doing it not for ourselves, but for the glory of God. So therefore, a statement like this is like, I want to see this pastor out of his comfort zone and see what he's actually done. So sure. I wanted, Elijah, you need to find out who the article was published by, and you need to contact him and ask him who this Pastor Jeff B is.
I have
Chris, Doug wants to get some of these pastors on the show.
I'll find out. You tell me, and I'll go track them down.
All right.
But it's like what Andy Mineo said in his song: when you talk like Jesus, everybody loves you. When you walk like Jesus, all they want to do is judge you.
That's good.
That's right. And keep that in mind. That's coming from the guy that forwarded the book, Gay Christian. So just throwing that out there.
Well, not everybody's perfect, Chris.
All right. So the next section is kind of more.
What's wrong with gay Christians, by the way, Chris?
We're not going there.
Okay.
The next section is going to be more different opinions that I pull from different like message boards and stuff that kind of just hit on this topic. So they're all over the place, but I'd like to see what you guys think about them. For the last 20 to 25 years or so, much of the music put out by Christian writers is nothing but pop music with religious lyrics. Years ago, almost all Christian writers wrote powerful songs with verses and choruses that had deep meaning. Now, because it's such a moneymaker, they have to churn out hundreds of thousands of new songs per year. And because of that, they have to mass produce music. A lot, not all, but much of today's pop Christian music is a few short phrases repeated over and over for about 3 to 4 minutes.
Sure. Anonymous professional.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think we've discussed this on this show plenty of times.
I think we're all in agreement with that. Yeah. I mean, as an industry, right? The one word that he doesn't use in that entire paragraph is industry. But yeah, as an industry, that's 100%.
Compared to everything we talked about from the 70s, where I believe that things are a lot more authentic, and wasn't so much cookie cutter. That's why you had, guys like Larry Norman able to, still be very popular, and he was anything but cookie cutter, right? One of the lyrics of his songs, is the song, why can't I think of it? It is Why Don't You Look Into Jesus? And talks about shooting needles, talks about drunkards, talks about people still looking for that perfect lay, gonorrhea on Valentine's Day, stuff like that. That was really geared to reach into the soul of somebody and say, hey, there's a better way. There's an answer to your sicknesses, your diseases that you're dealing with, these afflictions. And that's what Christian music was then. It was geared to reach people. Now it's geared to cater to Christians, right? So there's a vast difference in that approach, where before it was very very evangelical to outreach to people, and now it is more in reach with this cookie cutter aspect.
I mean, I remember being in church and singing for 10 minutes straight, "Our God is an awesome God." And just those words alone. I mean, we're taking words that are straight from the Bible and just repeating it over and over as a reminder. I mean, yeah, whatever.
I don't have a huge problem with it. I think there are some incredible, powerful songs that you do want to sing those over and over and over again. That doesn't discount it. I mean, I know people make fun of it, but again, that really is only a certain genre. A normal CCM is not just repeating it. Worship, however, a lot of contemporary worship songs is repeating the song over and over, the lyric over and over again. But again, if people like it and they enter in, or they feel closer to God, again, keep in mind that Christian music is for Christians for the most part. The entire industry is catered towards that. And there is an element, there's nothing wrong with that. Christians want to identify and grow in the relationship with God, with Jesus. So those lyrics that are being sung or they're listening to is important. I mean, Christians should have music. This whole idea that there should be all this music that's catering towards the world, I agree. But again, there's only going to be so many. It's going to be hard to get the people to listen to it. It's going to be more of a subset where you're getting it to lend to a friend, or I don't even know how it works today with Spotify, how that works. Even, you just send off a song and say, listen to this song, but it is what it is. It's an industry, but I do agree with Johnny that there are sometimes songs where you're singing stuff over and over again, and it's just as powerful as something that is not being repeated.
Well, I would say you would look at Rich Mullins or a Keith Green or even Mercy Me. I don't think they wrote those songs other than to praise God.
Yeah.
They I don't think Rich Mullins ever had it in his mind that song would be so huge. I think he just wrote it just to praise God. And maybe I'm missing something, but I don't hear that anymore in today's CCM world. So I can be wrong. I don't really listen to much of CCM. I still stay in the know a little bit, but I think that, again, you're talking about a different time frame.
Well, we need to get sorry to interrupt, but we need to get Generation Z or some millennials, early millennials on the show sometime, because we're all in a certain age category. We don't know what that next generation is into. They might not even think that is something they're into. We're going to come with
my kids, they don't listen to really Christian music.
How old are your kids?
I have a 17-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And the 17-year-old, he listens to movie soundtracks. Like the other day, he was like, "Do you remember the song from Shrek?" And I'm like,
thanks, Chris. Chris always brings the songs in, set the mood.
Chris,
it's a classic song. It's such a classic song.
Doug wants me to play this video to scare everybody off.
But again, we're always going to be biased because, again, you're not into Hillsong or Bethel for whatever reasons. You prefer, again, this type of worship. So it's really hard to have this discussion when we're all going to be biased within our certain tastes. It was almost like, you wouldn't have any word of it. Many people on the panel didn't like even the thought of the Imperials getting into, the top 10 of the 80s, but nonetheless, 25 singles, right? I say that because we all have biases, and we have to try our best to remove them and just kind of look for what it is. And there's going to be music that's going to fit all sorts of different people. Some can be really strong, in your face, just worshiping God. I said this at the beginning, I think on our first show. I said, ultimately, the highest, fullest regard all of us should be at is straight worship. If you're not there, you need to ask yourself the question, why? Because in heaven, that's all we're doing is worshiping God. Like straight on. There is no Striper songs, and there is no Toby Mac, and there is no.
Now, Robbie, I would say you don't know if it's in the key of Striper music.
Granted, my point is it's straight worshiping of God, right? It's not just like a love song. It's not just, so I just think that we're all on our journeys. We all have these like different like musical tastes, but I just think that's important. When it comes to music, it's always going to be tough depending on what, genre, depending when you were born. These are always going to play factors. The classics, there will be nothing like the classics, right? We'll never in our lifetime ever see anything ever touch the classics according to when we feel that were, whether it was the 80s or the 70s. Does anyone disagree with that? For Christians now, what's their classics going to be when they're being written, say, as a teenager, when they're 30 and 40 and they're on Sound Off because, we're gone and they're on the next iteration of it. What is going to be there? Are they going to remember the 2000s? It'll be interesting, right? We always wonder what are the future generations going to look at as, wow, man, Christian music was amazing at this point. Will they think all the stuff that we're trashing right now is like, wow, it was so good then, and look what it's become. It's probably going to get a lot worse. In my opinion, it's probably
I think it's going to be a lot of this new underground, this truther stuff that Tom McDonald and specifically, stuff like that for, coming out of there. Big shout out to the chat room. Hopefully you didn't leave by now because I wanted to do this. I've always wanted to do this live.
This is the Flat Smackin' Remix, the All-Star Mic Pass. Gotta bring the people together. We got the
big shout out to West Blaze in the chat room. This is the Flat Smackin' Remix.
Yeah, we even got the Flat Earth Man.
So I just wanted to shout that out.
Nice.
If you guys don't know West Blaze, go check out West Blaze. So West Blaze is in the house. He's got so much music. But he's performed at my conference. He's performed at Robbie's conference. So I just wanted to make sure that he got some love and some promotion right there. Because that's what the next generation is going to remember. Stuff that actually speaks to them, right? So many of the people in the chat room, they're going to remember the things that influenced them at this time. They're the young people, those things. And so, when we're talking about Christian music, you know, or music that has a faith message to it, it's going to be those things that change their faith, that strengthen their faith. You know, I don't think we're going to have another Keith Green, you know, in what we've ever had in the past. But
we will. We might not have in our lifetime, but we will at some point.
Yeah, to the young people, you know, who's going to be? I guarantee you, there are young people who didn't even know Toby Mac was in DC Talk. And
who's the Keith Green though now, present day? Who's the Keith Green right now? Or even the up and coming Keith Green to that caliber? Can you
I don't think there is one in comparison, but there's a Keith Green to somebody else, right?
Sure.
Toby Mac could be a Keith Green to a young to that
True.
person.
That is true. That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
You know, somebody who they see as genuine, somebody that their music changed their faith for the right reasons, you know, strengthened it, helped them, you know, all of those different things. And it doesn't have to be this cookie cutter.
It's usually always when you're a teenager too. It's usually from about 13, 14 to about 20, 24. Within that period, that's going to shape you. Like whatever bands, whatever music you're listening, for the most part, you're going to identify. Right, yeah. Doug? You're probably like, that's why the bands are so near dear to your heart, is because you were in that age category when you probably listened to it like back to back. Probably wore out your tapes. Did you wear out your cassette tapes?
Wore out cassette tapes, vinyl, CD.
Yeah.
Tracks.
Yeah.
What did you say?
I don't think he's that old. 8 tracks, he said. You're almost there.
I wish I had some.
My uncle gave me all his 8 tracks and his player, and I thought I was the biggest birthday gift ever. It was like amazing, right? But he was going into all cassettes at that point, and it was like Boston and a whole bunch of just weird stuff. But I was like blown away. 8 tracks.
I think if it's somebody that's young in their faith, and you know, they get hit with an artist or a band that really speaks to them, that becomes their Keith Green or their, you know, Granted, I had many because there were many new people popping up every month, you know, during the late 80s, early 90s. And I think Christian music has slowed down on the newer artists just because there isn't a lot of artists out there anymore. I mean, there isn't a lot of young bands. You'd be hard pressed in like, I'll use Cleveland as a market. You would be hard pressed to find a local Cleveland music scene like there was in the early 2000s down to the 80s.
So sad. So sad.
So I think that
rocks.
Was that?
And Cleveland rocks.
Yes, it does. But I'm just saying, I think that there's a lull right now, and hopefully there's some kind of boom in the near future musically, or music will die out.
It will have a resurgence at some point, but I agree with you, Doug. Like it will somewhat peter out, die out at some point to some level, because I see that happening, unfortunately. I see that happening already. I've talked to many of you on the panel that to me it's very discouraging seeing, and people say, oh, it's the industry and it's Spotify, and I'm like, nah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all, because again, CCM is a prime example why I don't buy it. There's still a lot of stuff being pumped out, but as far as the bands, like you mentioned, it's a sad state. What is that? But I think it's happening across the board. Just society as a whole is pretty discouraging when you start just looking at, you know, where things are heading. But when it comes to Christian music, I think that's why it's more important than ever that there's that light, you know, there's that salt that's out there in music in all shapes and forms, in all genres, and it should be flooding like crazy. So hopefully more people will be encouraged just to get out there and do more music.
Go, Elijah. What's the next anonymous guy?
So I think, what is it? It's like 11:15. Let me read through a few of these because they're all kind of similar to what we're talking about, to kind of get us a little caught up to where we need to be. We called this 7-11 music, 7 words repeated 11 times. The tunes are catchy in a simplistic way, and the lyrics are often turned into dog whistle phrases. My life is in you, Lord. My strength is in you, Lord. My hope is in you, Lord. In you, it's in you. Simple one-syllable words. It's geared for indoctrinating children, keeping Christian adults high in religion. They love it, but yes, to the rest of us, it does sound pretty cheesy. This one just kind of talks more about the music business as a business. You have to identify a market and sell to it. Christian music isn't created because of some upwelling of Christian faith. It's because Christians are willing to pay for it. Because of that, it doesn't make sense for it to contain any specific doctrinal details. It's going to be as non-denominational as they can make it. Mm-hmm. It'll be full of hearts on fire and love for Jesus and the feeling of being loved by God, but it'll all be very superficial and artificially emotional. Seriously, listen to any of it. Is there anything in there that isn't vague? Is there anything that corresponds to a specific doctrine that's unique to your flavor of Christianity? That's what the market will buy, and that's what it gets. What do you guys think about that one? Because that one's pretty...
Well, it's a good point. It's capitalism. I mean, it's we're back to the industry, and not necessarily as industry. Everyone else talks about industry being evil inherently, and it's not. I mean, coming down to capitalism, it's like providing a product that people will buy at the price they feel is sensible. It's a good thing for society. There's nothing. I'm a big believer in capitalism. It's a lot better than socialism or communism or Marxism. So, I mean, this is a good thing per se. It comes down to the intentions and the emotions of the individual artists, in my opinion.
What do you think about the whole comment about it being non-denominational? Like, there's just
why would you alienate? Why would you alienate? Like, if all of a sudden you're going to start alienating, huge portions of it, makes no sense. It's just not a smart decision unless that's all you want to do is go out and alienate people and have one specific denomination. Then you make music specifically for that denomination, but you can't be very large that way either.
I think what this person also should be saying is there's actually in the industry a lack of standing firm in the word. Take a look at, and I've mentioned this on the show before, you take a look at a guy like Bryson Gray. Bryson Gray is a rapper who makes music, isn't accepted in the Christian world. His songs go #1 on the charts. He stands firm on things in the scriptures. Another Christian rapper can't do that because they would be ostracized. Johnny was telling us, he was speaking to an artist, we don't have to mention his name, and he tells us there are things that he can't say, either be in his music or even in interviews, because he would be ostracized by the industry. Mm-hmm. So there is this realm of do not rock the boat. We don't want you to rock the boat because then we have to answer for you and what you have just said. So it's easier just to have no firm, no stance. Lauren Daigle, what do you think of this topic? I don't really know. It's easier to say that than it is for you to come out and say, well, this is what it says. This is what I believe. That is what Christian music has evolved into. And there are very few artists other than John Cooper, who writes a book that talks about critical race theory and talks about all these other things, talks about this stuff. Yeah, he's almost too big to be canceled. If you're not John Cooper, you're not going to get away with it. See, on the flip side, you got a guy like Toby Mac who writes a song, it's called I'm Sorry, basically telling you how sorry he is basically for his whiteness, in a sense, is when you really examine the lyrics around the time that he launched this whole thing. And it is...
Who's this? Well, I'm sorry.
That's Toby Mac, his song called I'm Sorry. Wasn't on an album. It was a single that he dropped. And he's very pro, another aspect that would get us removed. This is probably the #1 issue that I have with the industry, is because they won't stand firm in the word, and even the artists that feel like they should, they don't get the ability to, because the music business is a business. The Christian music business is a business, and it is easier to not rock the boat, even if let me say this, even if the Christian artist owners probably have their own opinion, but it's easier for them just to have no opinion whatsoever. And this is now trickles down. We have a station here in Ohio. It's called The Fish, very much similar to what Johnny has, and it's called Safe for the Whole Family. So we have to only say things that are safe for the whole family. So we can't offend another family, but that goes against everything what the word says, right? The word it's going to cut us like, like the sword that it is, and it's going to be firm on what it says here, and it's not going to waver. All Christians, whether it be churches, Joel Osteen churches, seeker-friendly churches, Christian music, it's going to waver because it doesn't have its feet firm in the word. Now, that doesn't mean that everything they do is wrong and evil. And that's where a lot of people jump the gun and start to say that. But then again, I think it is truly about not rocking the boat and pandering to all, because it ultimately may hurt your wallet book or get you to have people, if Winter Jam was sitting there telling you to repent of your sins, all of your sins, before their salvation message that they gave, and said, turn from these things, these very specific things, they would have protesters outside just as big as they would their lines to get into these things. Yet they don't have protesters, because they don't really tell you this is what you need to be turning from. This is who you need to be going to. There is not a calling to turn from your sin. And that is the one downfall of today's Christian music.
Do you think it's? Oh, sorry. Go Doug.
I was just gonna say, surprisingly, they didn't have protesters because of Skillet. I mean, John is very vocal about what he believes and where he stands, and he doesn't mince words on the stage every night on Winter Jam. So I was very shocked.
But that's new, Doug. I've seen Skillet at Winter Jam in the past. I've seen Skillet at Alive. Right. It's been cookie cutter until the last few years where he's become bold.
Because he got tipped over. He's had his fill of being maligned.
And he's almost at a point. He's like a Joe Rogan in the industry. He's too big to cancel.
Yeah, but I don't think people know what he's not doing what Dave Chappelle did, right? Dave Chappelle comes out, right? And now he's got crowds trying to cancel him outside of shows because he speaks the truth in a comedic, funny way. If John Cooper was very bold in the word, much more so, that will happen. But we haven't seen that yet.
Well, if they read his book, they would.
He hasn't rocked the boat enough.
See, a boat though is not really music, so it doesn't really cross over as much. Like in that industry, I understand what like Doug's saying, but I honestly don't think so. I mean, are we any different or any more unique as YouTubers? There's certain things we can't talk about. Some people would say these guys aren't talking about these things because it makes no sense to destroy the platform you're on for the good work that you could do. Because after all, YouTube is a business just like the industry. So I hear this argument. I can be on that side, but I can also say, wait a minute, we're doing the exact same thing as YouTubers going, oh, we can't mention that. Oh, we can't mention this, because we decide that there's certain things that are more important to have that platform and get that message out. And they might have the same viewpoint. They're like, look, I could go out, I could rock the boat, and it's over. I'm done. So all of a sudden my reach is over. I've got a lot more reach, and they're getting the letters from all these people. They're seeing the lives they're changing. So I don't always inherently think it's bad if someone doesn't get incredibly vocal on these things, because again, it is no different as an industry saying, oh, you'd be canceled. Well, you can get canceled on YouTube. If we decide to get bold on YouTube, we're gone. Does that make sense, having a platform? This show's over. We're no longer having the show. The channel gets taken down because we decide to say, no, truth is more important. We're going to speak it regardless of the consequence. So I'm going to take that angle on it, but I do understand where everyone's coming from. But we also have to reflect and say, wait a minute, in the culture we're in, we're expecting these guys to stand strong and speak out against this culture and lose that platform where we do the exact same thing. And I'm guilty as well. But again, I'm not, because I've prayed.
Quick plug, Robbie. Tell everybody where they can find Robbie Davidson uncensored every single week.
Oh, if you want to check out the radio show on Saturday at revolution.radio. And I will be streaming soon to Rumble. But yeah, revolution.radio every Saturday, 10 till midnight. It is completely uncensored. None of that could last. But my point is, I still have my YouTube channel up. I Celebrate Truth. I still run my 24/7 stream. I do these things and it reaches like a lot of people. I could come out, put out one video, lose my channel, and it's over. So all I'm saying is we have to understand there's a bit of a balance. John might be saying, wait a minute, I can selectively do these shows. I can put it in a book. I can let people know. I don't need to actually put it in my music. Some people say, well, you're a sellout. You should be saying all the stuff you put in your book on an album. No, he doesn't. He doesn't necessarily need to do an album on critical race theory. He doesn't. Because again, that's not what his audience, they want, you know, the biblical thing that he's providing. So I just look at it sometimes like we're really hard on people sometimes and we don't understand the full picture. That's why we need to get John. John, if you're listening, you got to come on. We'd love to talk with you, because I'll bet you any money he knows. He's got, like, he's prayed. He said that one interview I think Johnny had sent to me where he was told specifically, like, look, man, you can't talk about Jesus, right? He said, I'm going to do it anyways. There were certain things that he was still going to do. And it didn't matter whether or not he made mainstream. I'll guarantee there's a lot of people in Christian music that were offered the same contract saying, look, you just dropped the word Jesus. We're going to give you a career. You're going to be way bigger than any Christian music label. And they said no. And that's where they are. So
and I can tell you that there's at least one that I know of, and I won't name their name right now. But you know, they were told not to say Jesus in songs anymore. And they said replace it with Jah. It's a more, I forget the term that they use, but, you know, other religions use the term Jah. So therefore it was easier for them to use that instead. And the record company was okay with that.
Yeah.
And they ended up selling millions of records. What was that?
I said nobody knows who you're talking about, so it's okay. Wink, wink.
Does anybody on our chat know who I'm talking about?
I think so. You mentioned it on one of the shows, I think.
Boom.
I think you told the story.
Well, there you go.
But no, that's my point.
I just know 4 different bands.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure many bands said, no, that's too big a cost. We're not doing it. We would rather be here on this platform rather than being on, you know, what you're providing us. But some bands decide to go that route. It doesn't necessarily make it evil per se. Now, I think there's a lot more temptation. There's a lot more risk, in the same sense that, you know, if there was a hymn industry, there's be a lot less temptation and risk in the hymn industry than there would be in the hip hop or rock industry. So what, you know, we were going back to this and we'll continue on. But the one thing those pastors said, even though I disagree with what they said, some of it, there might be some truth. I would go so far as to say in Christian rock, there was a lot more temptation and a lot more risk than if you had stepped in this lane. Not saying it's bad and it was good and you were called to do what you're going to call, but some people are called to go down this road that's going to be a lot more rockier than some that's going to be a lot more smoother path. There's no doubt in my mind that when you enter into like top level musicians or bands and you're in certain genres, the temptation and the risk is going to be that much more severe.
All right, so I'm skipping past a couple of the other ones because I think we covered a lot of that. So the last section here is going to be kind of covering, I think, like the 5 bigger picture items that we've been discussing. There's a quote to go with each one of them and just see what you guys think. Is Christian music too mainstream and fake? There's just something more believable about the whispery, sexy voice that is singing about sex on the mainstream radio station than the voice that copies that style of singing while putting lyrics in about being in the arms of Jesus. And it's really not even the style or the lyric that is the problem to me. It's the fact that I don't believe the singer is feeling the kind of emotions and singing that lyric that would lead to that style of singing. What do you guys think?
Individual. I mean, it's hard. We have to judge it on individual level.
What artist is he talking about? What song is he talking about? You know, I mean, again, that's.
Do you think that there's some of that in there, though? Would you guys agree that you think that, not that all of it is that way, obviously, but that there are some, you know, whether it's through, you know, because of, you know, certain record labels pushing that or whatever, or certain artists that are just trying to jump into the spotlight, maybe, that are trying to, you know,
Okay, well,
check those boxes, you know, to get.
Take a Katy Perry. She was doing it straight up for God. She couldn't make it in the Christian realm, so she went to the mainstream realm, and you know, totally went sexualized and totally off of what her quote Christian roots were. So I would say it's more believable to be that.
How many albums did she have, by the way, in the Christian industry?
One.
There's a lot of artists that had one and they were horrible, and then they became big on you know, their second album. So I hear what you're saying, but
So do you think that a lot of those artists then, they were kind of like those one and done? Do you think that their heart was initially there to, you know, put out this worship album or this Christian album because they really wanted to make it as a Christian artist, or they were just like trying to find an avenue?
They just want to sing. They want to sing. They want to do that for their career. They love singing. God's given this gift of singing to them, and they want to sing to the world. That's it. Bottom line, for most of them, they just want to sing because it's the gift that God gave them, and they want to sing for the world, and they would love to do that the rest of their life. That's it. Bottom line. So they're going to sing anywhere where all of a sudden they're going to get picked up. So I don't think that, you know, I don't know her, but I don't think she consciously said, I am purposely going to sing about X, Y, Z in order to become big. She was just trying all avenues, and whatever clicked, she would have gone with.
It's a terrible single, by the way.
So she would have just gone with anything.
Doug, you might be able to, because I've heard that there's a lot of stories of, and I've listened to some podcasts of Christian bands and that there are bands who were Christian and were doing the Christian tours, but their hope was to actually get signed by a secular label because they didn't want to do the Christian thing, but the Christian thing was easier than doing the mainstream thing.
There's hundreds of them.
Right.
I mean, I can name a handful off the, you know, there was the Juliana Theory. There was,
I like them.
Project 86. There was many bands, but they found more success in the Christian realm than they ever did in the secular realm. By the time they made it to the secular realm had then kicked them back to the Christian audience because they weren't selling clubs out. They weren't, you know, selling as many albums as they had hoped. I mean, one of the biggest examples of that was the Juliana Theory. They were on Tooth and Nail, then got a deal with Atlantic. They had high hopes to sell what they were selling on Tooth and Nail, and Atlantic had a hard push on them, but they couldn't tap that market. They couldn't tap the mainstream market like they did within the Christian market. So I do believe that at one point, and I would say that it was the mid 90s to early 2000s, that we had 90% of the bands that were on like a Tooth and Nail, Solid State, that broke into the Christian market because it was easier.
Yeah. And I've heard a number of stories of bands talking about other bands. Yeah, we'd be on tour and, you know, we'd be praying with, you know, audiences, and we'd go to another band and say, hey, you guys want to join us in prayer? And like, that's stupid. Why would we want to do that? And they'd go back to their trailer or whatever else.
Right.
Just because they wanted, this was their opportunity to hopefully break through.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, we saw a ton of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's at now, but I do know that back then, yes.
Okay, let's move on to the next one here. Is Christian music too simple? I wish Christian artists branched out.
Hey, Elijah, hold on. Go back to that previous slide. I was trying to read that one. It said there's just something. Go ahead, read that out loud for me.
There's just something more believable about.
Telling me no. But my body.
Okay,
Chris
go.
is having fun tonight. He's having fun.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going. Go to the next slide.
There you go. Is Christian music too simple? I wish Christian artists branched out into different genres more and were more creative. While there are some exceptions, there's a safe standard that most Christian artists don't stray from. Also, not every song has to be some giant metaphor about God. Christians should be the first people to tackle difficult issues, not just through music, but in other mediums as well. Sadly, we're usually the last. Christianity is supposed to be the opposite of safe and formulaic, but that's often what Christian music ends up being. Obviously, one person's opinion, but
I mean, again, if you're listening to Christian CCM top 40 radio, sure, you can see that there are a lot of songs that are very similar. But then if you listen to a Mercy Me and then you listen to insert another band who's hard rock and then you listen to a rap, it's so very different. So, and all the songs are very different and they're not necessarily safe.
I think most of these critiques are geared towards CCM. I don't think they're like most of these overarching ones about Christian music. When people say Christian music, they think of CCM, period. Like they just do when they're talking about these type of things. Like go back to all these questions. They're pretty much CCM. Other than that one that was like rap related, I think they're all pretty much catered towards CCM.
Yeah, I agree with you, Robbie. I think that as I was kind of going through I kind of had that thought, and and there's people in my life as well that are Christians and not Christians as well that I've talked to about Christian music, and I always feel like their perspective kind of goes back to CCM. Like that's what they generalize all Christian music. That's what it is,
and it all does sound kind of similar and the same. I've said the same thing, and I love Christian music, right? But again, that is the truth when it comes to CCM. So again, if some people are getting triggered because they're hearing these things and they're thinking of some rap song or some, heavy metal band or rock, it's not. These are CCM. This is, cookie cutter type stuff, just like top 40s or pop or whatever. I mean, music's kind of changed, recently, but I think it could clearly be, if you turned on the country station, would not all those songs sound pretty similar? Right. CCM is a lot like country. Like guys, you have to keep in mind, both of these industries come from Nashville. Country and CCM are pretty much like, they're the same in a lot of ways as far as the way that they cater towards their demo and stuff, right?
And they're two of the biggest growing audiences and money makers as well, is Christian and country.
Yeah. So I think we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about these questions, is when they say Christian music sucks or Christian music critique, insert CCM. In your mind, think of CCM, because the minute you start going into like, hey man, death metal is not like that. It's very creative and they're very different. It's like, no, they're not talking about death metal, because we could not apply this to a lot of bands in Christian music outside of CCM. We just couldn't.
This next one, Johnny, I thought about you for this one, being, your profession and just when we were talking earlier about just Christian radio in general, is Christian music unrelatable to many people because Christian music and specifically Christian radio stations play to certain demographics? Some artists that I love make Christian music that I can't relate to, and sometimes I feel bad that I can't relate to it. And I feel like most aren't honest in the way that they portray their walk with God, completely ignore what's going on in the world or that different groups exist. So, I mean, do you guys...
right, Anonymous is wrong.
Do you guys feel like that's, that I think we kind of talked about that with Christian radio, with most of your mainstream Christian radio stations, that they're kind of like, directing most of their music that they're playing constantly just towards a certain demographic.
When you go to, and I'm sorry that they're not a sponsor of this, but when you go to McDonald's, sometimes when you go there, don't you just want a big steak, like just a delicious steak dinner? But you know what? They don't do steak there because that's not what they do. When you go to a Christian radio station and they have a specific demographic and it all sounds the same, whether you're listening to a K-Love or a Fish or a Joy or a Shine or whatever, it's because that's what works. And that has what made Christian radio as popular as it is, just like selling hamburgers and them not selling steak dinners.
Sure.
So, you know,
well said. We should be quoting that one. It's good.
Well, one of the guys here, his name is Josh Booth. He works at the Fish. We used to hang out with Josh a long time ago when I was managing an artist over here. We'd always see each other at all the different events. So, you know, we had a very casual, you know, like, hey, you know, I knew him, he knew me. We weren't buddies or anything, but he would tell us flat out, because he was, you know, before he became like right now, if you know this area, he's the daytime Johnny. Johnny's the morning Johnny. He's the afternoon guy here, and he told us specifically because he was trying to get the Fish to do a rock hip hop after hours because they wouldn't play it during regular time. So he was trying to get once a week. It was like he was successful. He got like a Saturday 10 to like 2 in the morning where he would just take over the airways and he would play, you know, hip hop rock artist. It would be outreach to kids. But eventually that got shut down, and it was our demographic is 35 to 40-year-old white women who are soccer moms.
Yeah.
This is who we are reaching. This is who we want to reach. They're the ones driving in the car. So we have to make it safe for the whole family so everybody can listen. And if the mom is into it, the mom won't change the channel. So that, and he flat out told us that is that goal for Rain, you know. So I don't know what do you think, Johnny?
That we have meetings upon meetings of it. We have spent a ton of time and money trying to figure out who is
Jessica.
Market. Yeah, it's the target market of 35-year-old soccer mom who has 2.2 kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, they make X amount of dollars and she's the decision maker. But every business, every company, every restaurant, they all do their own market. They all have the thing that they cater to, the market that they cater to. It's not a surprise. We used to do a hard rock evening and we used to do a hip hop evening and stuff. And the thing is that the audience that would listen to it is like, it's 1% or 5%. So why would we cater to a 5% when 95% of our audience doesn't want to listen to that?
Yeah, but how many people are listening to it during, say, midnight and 2 in the morning?
Lots. There's a lot of people that work graveyard shifts. Lots, tons. Actually, it's
a lot of nurses, firefighters.
Keep in mind, though, the kids in the young demographic or whatever, they're not even listening to radio anymore. I mean, as far as the age demo, that's also another factor. But yeah, you'd be surprised. There's actually, I used to sell advertising, and believe it or not, there's a huge amount of advertising that works in the middle of the night, like late at night into the early morning.
Peak listening hours. Midnight and 4 a.m. because that's when shift workers were getting off and starting.
Yeah. They do a lot of market testing. I mean, you find all this information and data, and these music styles just do not work at all. It won't be supported. And even if you're looking for that, they're like, man, I'm not listening to radio anymore. You know, and Johnny knows
burger
that.
joint doesn't sell pizza.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because this is something different too. And this is a big critique of the Christian music industry. Is that it is catered specifically, let's just put it bluntly, it is catered to white people. I mean, would you guys disagree with that?
I think there is definitely a shift though, and that there are more people of color that are also making a presence into CCM music. And so I think that the listening audience is growing and becoming a bit different for sure. More so now than probably it ever has been.
Well, I mean, so let me ask you this. So you got Torrin Wells, you got Mandisa, you got some of these artists. What percentage would you say of their audience that listens to them would be white? I would venture to say over 90%.
Yeah, I was gonna say about that.
So it's still very much geared towards that, right? Where you have, some of these new worship bands that are like gospel.
Keep in mind, you're talking Canada, and we probably only have, I mean, as far as a black population, Canada, what, 10%, 5%? I mean, it's very small.
Yeah.
It'd be like 5, like it's very, very small, Chris. Very, very small.
Well, it's only about 13% here in the States.
So that's probably 5 here, maybe even less, 4.
So you guys are really racist.
Nothing to do with that. We're actually we're not racist whatsoever. You got more issues in America, but I don't even think those issues.
That's fake news.
I totally agree. I was just about to say, Doug, 100%. I think it's all massively exaggerated. I think if America was the most racist country in the world, why is everyone all over the world trying to go there? Right? It makes no sense. It actually is the least racist country in the whole world. It's like travel a bit, guys. You'll actually see the world for what it is. But anyways, going back to that, everyone talks about that, but you go to any church and you will see a certain demographic in there. But again, there's only so many black churches in my city alone, and I've attended them. I went there for a couple of years and experienced it. It was amazing. It's not racist. It's people want to be together with that type of music and whatever, and it's cool. It has nothing to do with racism. That's another show for another time.
Don't you think so if you're looking at the demographic that the Christian radio station is designed to reach, and Johnny, you can answer this. Where is there diversity? Do you think there will be diversity more in the future of, because we're talking about, who do you play? Torrin Wells, Mandisa, you name a few other artists, right? But where are they playing any gospel? Are they playing Lecrae? Are they playing some of these other artists?
Well, we're not playing Lecrae because we're not a hip hop station. We don't play as much gospel because we're not a gospel station. There will be some CCM, like a Kirk Franklin, that it would cross over into a CCM, or other artists similar to that. But for the most part, that's, what do they consider it, black gospel or gospel? That's not theoretically CCM.
So is Christian music, this is probably even a show as well, but is Christian music hindering diversity within the kingdom of unification?
It's the most segregated I think Christian music industry is more segregated than anything.
But here's a question for you though. How many black people are specifically trying to do CCM music? They're not. There's not a huge portion of it, right? This is another show for sure. We'll have this discussion because this whole idea
that in itself is saying that I've been to plenty of shows where there's a lot of diverse crowds.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not always diverse, right?
Sure.
Can the radio stations become more diverse to create this unification, especially in the world that we live in today?
No, because they'd lose money doing it, Chris.
I don't know about that. I think if the music was good, because Johnny gets a lot of demos from a lot of artists that say, "Hey man, play this on the radio. It's so good. I'm amazing." And he listens to it and he's like, "Oh my goodness, this is garbage." If something came across your desk, but if something came across your desk and it was amazing, would you care one bit whether a person was white, black, or whatever, even Indian? Like I was going to ask, what's the Indian demo, by the way, for Christian music? Is it even smaller or higher? Because I mean, we have probably more native Indians in Canada than we do black.
Aboriginal,
whatever the word they say now. I mean, just saying overall.
Indigenous. Yeah, I mean, other than, I think there's like maybe 2.
There's a concert's going on. All of a sudden there's like 10 buses of Aboriginals and then 10 buses of black people. Would that concert have any problem with those people attending and coming together? I don't see any racism within the church or in the events themselves, right?
No, but the point is, do those people want to be there?
But like this is such a silly argument because it's like it's not like I said this and we'll move on because I know this is another show. Some churches like to clap, they like to dance. Okay, some like to be reserved and quiet. Who's right? Who's wrong? They're both fine. Somebody feels comfortable dancing, and most Black gospel churches they're doing this, they're clapping, they're dancing. That would not be okay for people that want to be more reserved, but they're not going to look and say, these people are evil and they're going to hell. They just say they enjoy that type of worship service and church. We enjoy reserved, quiet, maybe on our knees, whatever. To me, this is a bad argument because it's just two groups of people that are part of the body, and like the elbow is different than the knee.
But I'm taking race out of it. I'm saying strictly music aspect. So you have R&B, gospel, hip hop, rap, metal, punk.
But you're forcing these genres on other people.
But that's radio.
No, that's like saying that we're going to start getting all these soccer moms. Listen, here's Screamo. Okay, we're going to introduce Screamo and we're going to force this upon you. Sorry, whether you like it or not, we're going to play Screamo because we want to be inclusive. We have to be inclusive.
You that the demographic probably would change a bunch if you did add that, because there's a ton of moms out there that didn't grow up with.
KG, Johnny will know because he knows that he's tried many things within the radio.
Johnny, tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, whenever you go on.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Put on Impending Doom and see how many moms are like, this was amazing. It made me feel released. It made me feel happy to know that there are Christian bands out there.
And then call us when you're fired and you have no more job.
When I'm fired and we've lost our license because we've went against what our format is.
You can't actually go against the format. Like there's laws in place as well. Not only that, they have to play so much Canadian music by law or they get shut down. So there are certain things as far as that's why stations will go, we're going to be country. They have to play just country. They can't add Screamo and hard rock. If you're going to be CCM, you have to play that. You can't add other elements into it.
Well, Sound Off Radio coming soon with your hosts, Chris, Elijah, Robbie, Johnny, Doug, and Josh. Yeah.
There we go.
Maybe is that a Canada thing?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of it. To get Christian radio even in Canada. I mean,
it was illegal
until the 80s.
It was illegal to the 80s in Canada. It was illegal.
There's 30 Christian radio stations in Canada, and I think K-Love down in the States has 438.
And here's the crazy thing: the company that like Johnny's part of, they literally broke it open. They fought until finally it literally was the 80s.
Yeah,
late 80s. It was illegal.
94.
It was illegal in Canada. All those times that you guys enjoyed in America having Christian radio or whatever, it was illegal here.
I didn't say we enjoyed it.
You have 4 radio stations in one city, Christian radio stations, and in the 2 biggest markets in Canada, there's none.
So I mean that I'm floored by that because it's not like that here in the States.
No, it's completely different.
So
you look at places down in like Texas, and some of the biggest Christian radio stations are making so much money because of how popular they are. And you could open a Christian radio station in middle of nowhere, Texas, and it would do really well. And there are people who are begging for Christian radio stations in Canada, and there's not a license to be had.
And even with all of those Christian stations here, Johnny, we still don't know what a woman is.
That was a weird segue. Really strange one. You make it sound like it's a Canadian.
Hold on. I could put that R. Kelly back on. That was even more strange.
R. Kelly.
All right, so I'm just gonna because of time here. I'm gonna skip right to the end so we can kind of get into the final thoughts.
Let's do it. We got 5 minutes.
Question. There's 4 questions. What is the Christian music industry doing wrong, in your opinion, if any?
Why don't you
look at everything that we've talked about tonight?
Elijah,
let's ask Johnny because he's actually part of the Christian industry right presently.
What were you gonna say, Chris?
I want to hear Elijah give some thoughts on this as well. So I will. So yeah, all right.
Go ahead, Johnny. You were talking. I'll jump in.
I don't. Are we doing something wrong? I don't know. I don't think so. And the issue what we're doing wrong is that we're not appeasing to every single person who wants us to do something different than what we're already doing.
Good. Screw equity and inclusion. No, it's garbage. So good for you. Keep going.
Oh my gosh. It's been a long day. I would say what is the Christian music industry doing wrong? Everything. That's just because that's how I am. That's how I'm built. I mean,
that's why we're a diverse panel, Doug. It's why we're a diverse panel. It's all good.
That's why I started the label I started, and that's why I looked for the bands that I looked for. The music industry, as far as the mainstream Christian music industry, they placate to the money, the people that have money, to the people that because it's business based, it's not ministry based.
I agree with you there, Doug. I think that for me, I wish that we would be able to have more, diversity as far as genres and music that was like more accessible, other than just Spotify or word of mouth. I lived in Dallas for a number of years, and we had so many good Christian rock radio stations down there. And I got to, find so many bands and discovered, different artists because there was an outlet for that. You're listening to people all the time. That was awesome. And I wish that there was more of that.
Well, you had the venue. I don't know if it was around when you were there. The Door, and Deep Elm Live, all of that stuff. That's in that part of Texas. It's a huge market for Christian underground music. It didn't matter what part of the underground. Didn't matter if it was metal, punk, alt rock, or hip hop. It was huge just for that underground market where other parts of the United States aren't. So
why is it underground?
Because the mainstream won't pick it up.
Yeah, because there's no money in it.
I would beg to differ. There's artists like MXPX, Under Oath, Zayo, POD that have made livings doing it and have made lots of money for record executives.
POD for sure.
MXPX for sure. Under Oath for sure. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
This is Doug's. If you guys can see that, this is his compilation record called No Compromise Records, where they weren't afraid to say certain things and be firm in the faith and outreach to the lost and the dying. And they had a lot of great bands on here. John Rubin, 12 Tribe, 238, which went on to do some big stuff. So I don't even know if that phone number still works, Doug, but I'm sending that out to the whole world right now.
I don't know who has it now.
Doxed. Doug's been doxed.
I have this CD in the store for $25 at bornagainsound.com.
Oh, dude, you got to give me half of that. I'm still trying to make my money back from that comp.
There we go. It was a terrible segue. What are they doing wrong? They have pandered into. Let me stop sharing my screen here. They have pandered to all the things of the world in the way that the industry is run. We have, Robbie will talk about this from, there are no good albums anymore. It's singles. It's just single after single after single. And then, a bunch of the singles combined make an album a few years later, right? This is what happens a lot in the mainstream.
It's like EPs now. It's like they won't even do a full album. They're like, oh, here's an EP. It's like,
cheaper.
Thanks for the 4 songs.
Right. It's cheaper. We've gone away from all the things.
It's like TV series. They used to be like 24 episodes. Now they're like 8. I'm like, are you kidding me? How do you call that a TV series? season 1 and you got 6
it's
episodes.
cheaper.
Like, what no, it's garbage. I don't need.
It's all about the money.
I know it's all about the money, but it's just such a ripoff in that.
Striper has a new album coming out and it's got 12 songs on it. That's all.
You guys notice that changing from music real quick, but like television shows, season 1, it'll be like 6 or 8 episodes. Like, how is that a season, a television season?
It's because they get canceled so quickly. Why are you going to put like 13 seasons in it when there's going to be no season 2? You might as well just do 6 episodes and then you can have 3 seasons.
That's because you guys watch that Heartland show in Canada and it's like 20 seasons or something like that.
It's filmed in BC.
It is, and it's terrible. And I have to walk in on my wife watching it. And I tell her,
so you're saying that you're not the demographic for that, huh?
I am not the demographic for.
Oh, but who is?
For terrible
Oh,
Canadian.
but who is? Who is?
But your
Oh,
wife
Liz
is?
is. Liz is.
Oh, and
she's
and
not
it's
Canadian.
20 seasons?
Yeah, 20 seasons, I guess, right?
It's huge though. Women to men, as far as like Christian music in general, is pretty massive. Like it's that's a whole other discussion sometimes.
It's definitely changing though.
It is, but it's still a larger portion. What is it? 60, 55,
35.
65, 35?
Yeah, but what they're doing wrong is the genuineness, the cookie cutter. I think they could do better with less music and more quality, right? Which we had before, right? I mean, when you think about it, 80s, 90s, you would get an album and you may not go big until your third single drops, right? Now we don't have that anymore. Now it's like, boom, we throw it all out there. There it is. It's consumed. It's over with. It's gone within the month. It's a flavor of the month. Then the next thing comes out. Then the next thing comes out. We don't have these songs that, we do. There's a few that may stay on the charts for a long time. But overall, it's just a turnover. It's just continually turning over. And I think that's where the artists, they're not really genuine in what they're doing, because it's either contractual. They have five albums they have to put out in this amount of time. So, it is a contractual agreement. There's and that's all industry stuff. And that's like, if you're really trying to make music to touch someone's life, whether to, reach someone with the gospel, whether to share Christ with them, encourage them. I mean, look, there's been some great songs. I don't care what you guys say, but there was a great song, one of the best songs I think of the year, which doesn't get a ton of play, with Ryan Stevenson, Vince Gill, Amy Grant. It was like an unbelievable song for people who have just either lost someone, and
did you play it, Johnny?
No,
they probably didn't play it. And you should try to see if you can get it in rotation, because it's an amazing song, and most people don't even really know.
Amy Grant, Ryan Stevenson, who?
Vince Gill.
Vince Gill.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, thank you for that suggestion. We're going to give that prayerful consideration.
See if the 35-year-old moms will like it.
Sure
They will love it. They will love it. But there's been some really good stuff that has come out. That then again, if it doesn't catch the complete attention for that moment, then it's gone and it's a flash in the pan and it's already, onto something different. Guys like George Moss, who's a dear friend of ours at Take on the World. And he's the reason we even have our name, Take on the World. But his song Take on the World should have been picked up by Christian radio, should have been played, should have been known by the world. And yet, albeit it has hip hop element, it's very radio friendly and could have been easily one of those crossover hip hop albums within CCM that should have made it big. But it really didn't. And
carefully consider it, Johnny.
It's our theme song as well, but that's okay, to the conference. So big shout out to George. So if you guys are in the chat room, just go show George some love. But yes, so there are a lot of things that the industry does wrong. There's a lot of things that the industry does right. And there are a lot of people who, do have a good heart in there. we could be very critical of it, but we're talking about, if we're talking CCM, or we're talking, indie bands, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff out there, and that will be a future show. We've all talked about it. What are some really worthy artists that we should be paying attention to that, the industry doesn't give much attention to.
So, Chris, you kind of answered question number 2 already. How can Christian music industry change for the better? What does everybody else think?
I
would say personally, I know, Robbie, you talked about this on a previous show, that I feel like there's just not like a lot of good, like up and coming bands, like good Christian bands. And I'd like to, I don't know how, what that idea would be, but I would love to find a way to like promote that, to be able to give, the younger generations the opportunity to say, hey, I want to jump into the Christian music industry. I want to, start a band, or, become an artist in the Christian music industry, and I don't know how you can do that, but I'd love to find a way for that to be done, to really start to promote like the next generation coming up to get more involved with it. So
I think it goes back to why in the early 90s, not early, but mid to late 90s and early 2000s, why Christian music was so big was because it had the birthing of the underground movement. And I believe that that's got to happen again for the Christian music industry to take notice of good, actual new artists. Because let's be honest, we're just cycling through the same 20 or 30 artists. And so we need fresh meat. We need fresh blood. We need new artists to break through. So we need coffee shops again. There's a lot of stuff that needs to go in to make that happen. I think that we have a generation of kids that are just, they're fine with sitting and doing what we're doing right now. We're not sitting in front of each other. We're, on video, but they're fine with that. They're fine with playing video games and not socializing. So I think that's a big part of it too. We've lost the socialization. And I think that if we have coffee houses again, coffee shops, back in the day when I was like promoting shows in VFW halls or wherever anybody would let me put a stage up and do a show, I think that needs to happen again.
That was so important for the youth. Church, the big churches, they get their thing. They do their concerts for the adults, and they do all that stuff. That's why they cater to that. That's why the independent labels, they stay independent. And Johnny was dead on. There's just no money to be made, if there's not large youth groups, if there's not, the death of the youth group, that was very instrumental in, these artists not being able to have their outlets. Almost all of those tooth and nail bands got their start by playing in youth groups. And that's why they were known as Christian bands, even though they were probably living a fool. They didn't believe really everything and were more concerned about fame, popularity. And here's a label that sees a little bit of talent in some of these bands, and they say, well, as long as one of you guys claims to be a Christian, come aboard. And all of a sudden, Tooth and Nail becomes this huge conglomerate from youth group bands of young 16 to 19-year-old kids who aren't even firm in their faith, and they're the ones leading the next generation of kids. And then they ultimately falter, and then those kids falter. But to be, at that season and time, those youth groups shows, those youth group events, that type of music, style of music was vastly important. And there's many people many people have walked away from the faith, and many people started their faith there, and they're strong today, and they have unshakable faith today, and those are their roots and their elements. So, we can't always say, even in someone's ignorance or their youthfulness, or their styles or these things, that God isn't using this, because it's all for His glory, for whatever, whether it be a listener, somebody who saw them in concert, or, even those band members themselves, which, you guys are friends with, that, Johnny interviewed just a couple, you had that Jesse Sprinkle interview, and, he talked stuff like this. So, that comes all from that, what is, how we can get better. And I think, Doug, you hit it on the head, is getting back to, those things that drew us together, and young people being able to see other young people like themselves, wanting to listen to things, be involved in things of God that's in their style and in their realms, is so vastly important for them. Because if it's mom and dad listening to what's for 35-year-old soccer mom, they're going to tune it off, and they're not going to be interested in Christian music.
Agreed. What Christian artists do you think are currently doing it right? Any examples you guys have that come to mind? I would say for me, like I talked about earlier, Disciple. I really like Disciple. I think that they're rock, and they stay true to their genre, but they're also, keep their faith in the forefront, and they don't shy away from it. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the originality. So
I'd have to say, in my genre of music, the bands that are doing it right are like Demon Hunter and Impending Doom.
And Striper.
And Striper.
You always got to have a Striper.
Hey, still selling out shows all across the United States and world.
Don't ever leave Striper out, ever, on the show, ever. Every question, put Striper in there somewhere.
Johnny, you play it. You tell us.
Yeah, no, I think the majority of the artists that are on CCM, from the conversations that I've had, are doing it right, or are trying to do it for the right reasons. There's definitely things, money does get involved, or being told to what to do, but for them trying to do their best in the situations that they had, there's a lot of really great people in the industry that are trying to do what they can, and hopefully planting seeds, and being able to spread and share the gospel. And a lot of times what they do on stage is one thing, but the one-on-one personal relationships and stuff that they have with their fans, and things like social media, allow for things like that to happen, which didn't happen in the 90s and in the zeros, because we didn't have the social media.
I would say definitely that well over 90% in the CCM, I think, are definitely on the right track as far as their relationship, the right intentions, why they're there. Can't be said, for tooth and nail. And I mean, you could see that when it was up and coming, based on, so it's a hard comparison, but I think when it comes to CCM, by far, you might not like the genre, you might think it's cookie cutter, but I'll tell you one thing, they'll last the test of time. You will see it in their fruit pretty much. And over a lot of these other genres, unfortunately, you're not going to see the fruit long term. Over decades, that will be hard to find. So that is just a reality. So we can have our issues with CCM and the way the industry is, but I think there is, like Johnny said, a lot of solid people that are in there. So
yeah, I would say, for CCM, I would say the one that will have the longest lasting impact, not only musically, but I think, how they write their music, from the heart that they appear to have, for King and Country. I think they do a great job. I did like them much.
Look at that family, Lola. Look at the Small Bone family. I mean, I was in a prayer circle back when Rebecca's, highlights when they were just small little boys, like they were in this prayer circle. My point was they traveled as a family. They were so incredibly bound together in their faith and in family. So it goes to show that entire family, they're going to have the fruit, including the brothers, not just with Rebecca, but also that entire family. I mean, they're all fully involved, and ministry is a big portion of,
Yeah.
I
would say, because I try to judge, an artist on where they could be and who they choose to be. I take a look at, I've been following for a long time, and yes, he happens to be, I'm not trying to be a fanboy or something like that, but I take a look at an artist like Crumb, Plato, Deep Space Five, Ilharmonics, and where a lot of his contemporaries who have made music of that era have just gone off and done their own thing, done secular music, just walked away from the faith altogether, or just kind of didn't want faith to be part of their music. If you listen to his last record, Crumb's last record, everything he does, he's pretty. I'm not saying he's blackballed from the Christian industry. Like Radio U supports him big time. There are people who support him. He's not on a lot of festivals, a lot of shows anymore. It's criminal because he should be. And his last record, Dart, Dirty Angels Ride Tonight, that record showcases his strength and his faith. I absolutely love the song he did with Sonny from POD on the record. And that tells you kind of everything, like what that's about, everything in there. There's so much, to that, but that just shows here's a guy who has won all these battles, done all these things, but chooses to still keep his faith, because that shows genuine. He doesn't make a ton of money. He tries to do music full time. And he paved the way. A lot of these guys that are still doing it, they've paved the way for the Lecraes and these guys to earn really big income from this. But a guy like Plato, who could say, screw it, I'm just going to go get a job, continues to try to reach the world. He'd rather play clubs and bars and reach people, and share the word that way, because those are the people who respect him more than even the Christian church. So if you get a chance, if you are a hip hop fan, listen to the Crumb record. It's really good. They're singing on it, so it's not all hip hop, but it's really, really good stuff. So there's more, but I don't want to take the whole rest of our time here.
Let's wrap up. It's getting late now.
Last question. Obviously, we're a Christian music show, and we all love Christian music here, and we were kind of beating up on the industry a little bit tonight. But the final question is, why doesn't Christian music suck? And, for me personally, I have a lot of people that I've been talking to recently and dealing with that do feel that way, and they're Christians that feel that way. But I feel like they haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to, there's a lot of diversity in different genres, and there's a lot of talent across the board. And I think obviously one of the main things is obviously the message behind it that you're going to get, and the truth in it versus, what you're getting in the secular realm out there and the emptiness that's out there. So I think that there's power behind it. And you're just not going to get that, necessarily when you go out and start branching out into things that are not talking about God and about Christ. So
I would say as a whole, Christian music God is using to literally save people. I don't think any other genre can say that. So, Christian music is incredibly powerful, and God is using it for his greater good. people are literally having their lives changed for eternity. So that's what I'll say.
I'm with Robbie on that one. There's so much good that has outweighed the bad. And just seeing what it's done through my life and what it's done through other people's lives that would never have gone to church until they went to a Christian concert, or they went to like Acquire the Fire and they saw a band. And that's why music is just so important, because it is that middleman that helps you whatever route you go. And Christian music in that aspect has led and helped bring people to Christ in droves. I would almost dare say more than like a Billy Graham or that of any preacher that has been on this earth.
It's there's a genre for everyone when it comes to hearing about Jesus, whether you like it in country form or screamo or hip hop or bluegrass or southern gospel, and God is using those people to hear the message. And we, as we always say, the right song at the right time. There, whatever you're going through, there's an opportunity for you to hear a song that an artist sings, and it'll hit you, and you will, seeds are planted through music and Christian music. And you'd be hard pressed for the amount of stories over the years that I've heard from people who just, not Christians, just ended up turning on the radio to hear, insert whatever song that may be, and, gave their life or started listening to, or just heard of God for the very first time through Christian music.
Yeah, I agree with, obviously what you guys are saying is the main reason why it doesn't suck. And that is, the absolute most important thing. Speaking from the world's perspective, because they tell us how bad it sucks. Why it doesn't suck when we analyze it from their own actions is that they recruit people from the Christian music industry. When they see the talent, when they see the artist, they want to grab them and take them. I can give you countless and numerous instances where this has happened for going on decades, from Amy Grant, Stryper in the 80s, all the bands we've talked about in the past, all the secular crossovers that have happened. They haven't happened because Christians have forced their way to there. They have they have recruited them. They have said, no, this artist can be big. Switchfoot, they saw Switchfoot and go, Meant to Live. We don't care that it's a Christian song. It's going to be huge in the industry. And which it became. They did that with Skillet, right? Skillet got signed when their Collide record came out, right? All of these major label deals. Matt Carney's over here on In Pop Records making Christian music, with his album Bullet, which had songs that ultimately were the same exact album called Bullet that became the mainstream release. And all he did was add the song Nothing Left to Lose. Nothing was different other than that one song. Maybe another song was added and the track listings were different. But it was basically the same record. They know it doesn't suck. So as bad as they say all of these different things, you take a look at Hillsong and you look at the girl that came out of Hillsong in the early 2000s. I don't know why her name's Brooke Fraser.
Brooke Fraser, yeah.
And she got big in the mainstream. You look at there's so many different things, right? MXPX goes and signs a major label deal because they were dominating this subgenre of Christian 90s punk rock. The list goes on and on and on and on, and it continues, right? Or even when there's a crossover hit, we heard "Mercy Me" on all major adult contemporary radio stations when that song dropped, because it did not suck. They didn't care that it said Jesus. It was what people wanted to hear. And the list goes on and on. So as much as bad as they can say about it, all the different things, I think they're more like the George Costanzas, like we showed in there, that he was very positive about Christian rock, and less like the Elaines, who didn't understand it, because they see that there's not only money behind it, but there's talent. There's so much there that they want to steal these artists, right? I mean, here's POD, right? POD is on Rescue Records. They're a big band within Christian music, and then they signed their Atlantic deal. This is the same over. It's over. I mean, we can do a whole show on all of these artists who had either some success or major success in the industry. Why did they recruit Lecrae? Why did they sign Lecrae? #1 album in the country, right? They're signing this guy, right? And they're putting a lot of money. Now he's walked away. Now he's independent, back on Reach Records, and his albums aren't #1 in the world anymore. But they knew that, hey, this guy doesn't suck, and so we're going to do that. So if I'm going to examine it that way, from their own actions, they let us know that it doesn't suck. Yes, there might be issues with it. Yes, there may be problems with it. But as these guys said, it is a catalyst and a tool that Yahweh can use to share the goodness of who he is with this lost and dying world. And so thus that is the reason, ultimately, I believe, why we don't believe that Christian music sucks.
Amen. Awesome.
So that's all we got.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks, Elijah.
2.5 hours. This one, I think this is the record show now for time.
I think Elijah should start picking it and doing the show.
Good job. Next time you can just maybe do 3 slides, and that'll take up 2 hours. So
yeah.
Well, that makes me feel really good, guys, when I do my show. Right?
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, no, it's good. It was great. Great
and
job.
Next time we'll have Josh. We'll have everybody in. We can get some guests. But one of the shows that I'm working on for hopefully maybe the next one, we were talking about earlier is, and I'll give a teaser to it, is today or just recently, within a few days, Christian rapper Stephen Malcolm just launched his brand new album. I believe it's Summertime, something like this. Summer Vibe. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it features Snoop Dogg. And this is being pushed by the Christian industry today. I got all the emails. Video just dropped. You can just Google Stephen Malcolm, Snoop Dogg, and watch the video. And he's actually a good friend of George Moss. And he's on a big Christian label. And so this just dropped today. So I think a great show would be going through the Christians' secular collabs and answering the question: should Christian artists, being what it's designed to do, is teach people about God, lead people to God, encourage a believer, should Christian artists collaborate with secular artists? So maybe that's something, maybe, I don't know what you guys think, but
that'll be a good show.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I enjoyed definitely. I was saying to Johnny, coming into a show blind like this, because you don't know, what's going to happen, and it's nice. It's all spontaneous. You get the natural reactions. There's no real thought process. So yeah, it's fun when it's done like that. So great job, Elijah, and thanks, Chris, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
All right, what we'll do, Elijah, we're going to play that video that we didn't play right now. So we're going to end the show, and then is that okay?
Sure.
All right, we're going to end. Elijah had another video that we were going to play throughout, and we're going to play that now. So good night, everybody, and we're going to play this, and we'll end on this note.
Good night.
All right. Love you.
Hey everybody, I'm Clifford Stemmy, the Pop Song Professor. Welcome to my channel where we make English class awesome by talking about song lyrics. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about why I stopped listening to and liking Christian music. I think this conversation is a really important one to have, even if I think not as many of my subscribers actually care about this topic. But growing up, I always felt like there was this pressure. You had to listen to Christian music because it was safe. You could always count on it to be safe.
Well, we were gonna...
It's just us, bro.
I don't know what just happened there.
I'll tell you why I don't like Christian music. No, I'm just...
All right. Well, I think that was it. Hey,
right. Good night,
Elijah
Chris.
bounced out. I accidentally bounced him. I was trying to move just him out. So, all right, everybody. Yeah, you guys have a good night. I messed it up. All right. Maybe we'll play it on a different episode. You guys have a good one.
The breath in my lungs just can't hold me. No man. Start a revolution with no man control. Sound off. Start a revolution with the breath in my lungs. Sound off. Sound off.